Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. It's been some time since we've had our special guest today, and I so look forward to having him back. Michael Finch is back with us. He's the president of the David Horowitz Freedom Center, and he's the author of a new book entitled A Time to Stand, the Dire Hour to Defend America's Beauty, and that's the title of the book, subtitle. He's also an Air Force veteran, frequent speaker, published poet, and his work has appeared in the Front Page magazine, American Thinker, and America Greatness. So it's an honor to have with us today Michael Finch. Good to see you, friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Perry. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful. Thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, good to see you. Where are you? Where are we talking to you from?
I'm actually in Japan right now. Our office is in California. I kind of shuttle back and forth, but I'm in outside of Tokyo, Japan.
Well, gee, what time is it there?
The wonders of technology.
Yeah, what time is it there?
It's a little bit after, just about midnight, just hit midnight, so it's not too late.
Oh, well,
good time.
Thank you for staying up.
Absolutely.
So, what led you to write this book?
You know, I've been a lover of American history and American culture for decades, and kind of self-taught. I have a bachelor's degree, but I don't have an advanced degree. But I've spent, other than working for David Horowitz for over 20 years, I've spent a lot of time doing self-study and studying American culture and American history. And it really has bothered me what the left has done and to American education over the last half century, really since the 1960s. They don't teach American history anymore, or they denigrate American history. And the more I read, the more I found out that American cultural history, it's art, architecture, poetry, literature, is an amazing and great and beautiful history, and we're not teaching it. We've kind of ignored it. And I think as conservatives, you know, I'm a conservative, of course. As a conservative, we do a good job teaching the Federalist Papers, the Constitution, and the Declaration, but we haven't done a very good job of teaching the history of American culture, and it is incredibly rich, and is the culture that binds us and kind of unites us as a people. So my goal, in kind of a very modest way, I cover a lot of topics in the book, but is to highlight the beauty of American culture and that great history. And hopefully it'll get people kind of on their own self-taught discovery to read, to view the paintings, to this incredible landscape and everything that represents America. We have the most inspiring culture, I feel, in the modern world, and I think that needs to be cherished and restored.
That's beautiful. Can't agree more. Do you think there's a return back to America's culture?
I think so, because you said, you know, there's a chapter in my book about what ails America. We're a great country, and thank goodness for President Trump for trying to restore a lot of America's greatness. I think there's a hunger as we kind of deal with all the ailments, the collapse of the manufacturing base, the life expectancy dropping, all these kind of, there's crisis and mental illness. We have a number of crises, as great as our country is. And I think there's a return to something, whether or not that's going to be another religious great awakening, I don't know. But I think there's a yearning for the things that bind us and unite us. And I'm hoping that that will include looking back on American history and not believing kind of the Howard Zinn version of American history about how tainted and horrible American history is. We're not just a racist, sexist, imperialistic, eco-destroying imperialistic power. We have the most inspiring, beautiful culture, I think, in the world, and we need to teach it, and I think people are hungry for that. I really do.
You know, one of the most difficult things to process that we've been through lately, and you touched on it, is how education is removed from its curriculum, the history of the United States, civics, but the beauty of the United States, our culture, our art, our monuments. I mean, you can go on down the list. All of that has been demonized, and now we're waking up and going, what in the world did we do to ourselves?
Well, look, I mean, you know, Stalin and Lenin did this in the Soviet Union. Mao did it in China. In order to create this kind of new leftist utopia, you have to destroy what was previous, right? You have to destroy and attack the history. And that's what the left is doing. So, you know, and even some conservatives fell into this trap. Well, Robert E. Lee was a Confederate general, so it's okay if we take down his statue. Well, it never ends there, right? They're not interested in Robert E. Lee's statue. They want George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. They want them removed from American history. And you saw during the summer of 2020, when you talk about the monuments, right? During the George Floyd riots, they were trying to take down Abraham Lincoln's statue, and he was the great emancipator. It doesn't end with the first point. There's a conclusion where they want to destroy and wipe out and eliminate American history and only teach with their view of American history. And I'm not saying we shouldn't teach about slavery, the treatment of the Native Americans. There's a lot of stains to American history. We are human. That's human nature. But there's such greatness, I think, to overcome that. We have to teach all of it. And I think the average American is thirsting for that kind of knowledge. And in spite of the faults, I don't think we need to over apologize for these faults. There is such greatness and beauty to the aspiration of American culture and our history, again, that I think people are hungry for that. But the left has been, David Horowitz talked about the long march through the institutions. They started, remember Bill Ayers, one of the leading radicals of the 60s, he went into the education department at the University of Chicago. Many of the left-wing radicals knew as their purpose in the 1960s is to take over education and re-educate the American citizen, and they've been very successful, and we have to take that back. I think that's really of all the other things that we're trying to do, and our hands are full trying to climb this mountain to restore this country to greatness, the culture, I think, is paramount.
Yeah. Do you have any idea, Michael, why we let this happen right in front of us?
Again, I keep going back to my mentor. I worked for him for over 20 years, David Horowitz. Conservatives, one of his mottos was he became a conservative to teach Republicans and conservatives bad manners, right? David was a radical leftist. He was a Marxist. And they take the gloves off and they'll fight to win whatever the cost. I'm not saying we do that. That's not conservative. However, conservatives, as he used to talk about, we're busy running our businesses, running our lives, raising children, worshiping God, working hard, and doing the right thing to be a citizen of this country. The left doesn't do that. As he says, they wake up every morning trying to save the squirrels or save the world or remake human nature and human society. Okay, we don't operate that way. We're busy running our lives and raising our families. So I think, we just let our guard down. It's not in our nature to fight this every day. I've been blessed to be able to work for nonprofits for most of my life, so I've been kind of engaged in this, and you've got your show. I mean, there's a lot of us that do this on a regular basis, but the average citizen is busy, and they should be. They're busy running their lives and their families, taking care of their families and making a living. They don't want to be engaged in these kind of battles all the time. The left does, and they caught us with their guard down. They've taken over the universities, the campuses, the K through 12, all of our schools. They've taken over the media and Hollywood. Now we have other avenues. We're not at a complete loss here. You've got your show, and there's a lot of shows. There's a lot of the rise of social media. It has some negative effects, but it also has allowed our voices to get out there beyond the mainstream media. So we have got to fight back. It's never too late. We've got a lot of gain on our side. We've got a president that believes in what we're doing. And hopefully God continues to bless our country and will continue to bless our country. So we'd like to hope that he's with us. But we have got to engage in this battle, and we can no longer sit on the sidelines and say, let's not worry about the campuses or our schools. It's okay, the left has taken that over. There's nothing we can do about it. May he rest in peace and God bless his soul. Charlie Kirk devoted his life to going to the campuses, fighting on our behalf. We need to pick up that torch that Charlie had carried for so long, taken down at such a young age. But Charlie gave us kind of a blueprint to go into the campuses, engage, and get young people the education, teach them and motivate them to be able to fight and to engage in this battle. So I think the blueprint's there. We know what we have to do. We've got to continue to fight.
I've had Dr. George Barner on quite a bit, and he's done a lot of research in this area, and there is seemingly a genuine turn of young people, especially young men, It certainly was emphasized during Charlie Kirk's ministry and outreach. But there seems to be
absolutely.
There seems to be a genuine turn of this younger people saying, you know what, we've been lied to. We don't like this. And it seems to be pretty effective. I mean, they're genuinely coming back. They're going to church. 18% increase in church attendance since Charlie Kirk's assassination. So something's happening out there.
Yeah, something's definitely happening, and as grim. And I don't want to just to write about the despair. I mean, there is a lot of despair. We are, I think, in a dire crisis right now. But God works in mysterious ways, and the American people. Look, we elected a president that believes that as we do on many of these things. Half of the country, I think, and at least half of the country. Understands this. So it's not like we're in a small minority. I think we have the majority. I think the average American, you talked about the young people, the Democrats thought they had the youth vote all wrapped up. They thought they had the African American, the Hispanic American votes all wrapped up. Well, they don't. I think there's a lot of eye-opening, and people, you're right, they've been lied to, and they know that. People, the average American is not stupid, right? I think they understand what they want. They understand what it makes America great. So, I think we're on the right path. We have great forces and power behind us. So I think there is a turning, whether or not that's, again, a religious great awakening or a political awakening. The big question is, will Donald Trump's America First philosophy and policies, will that stick beyond the end of his second term? We have a lot to do, but we're engaged. I think we know what we have to do. And you're right, things are turning. I'm optimistic. I think long term, I see great things for this country. I think great things for the restoration of America and the return of American greatness. But the left is relentless. They will never give up. We're never going to win the battle. This is a battle that's really, to be honest, we've been fighting this battle since Adam and Eve in the garden, right? The left wanting to become God. Man wanting to become God and replace God. That battle will never end. So as Ronald Reagan said, we have to fight this every generation. So nobody will ever be able to come on the show and proclaim ultimate victory, at least not until the end of time. But we're not there. So we are going to have to fight every day and continue the fight. But thank goodness, thank God for what you're doing, and so many patriotic Americans. They understand what needs to be done. So I feel the same way. I think there's definitely a turning, and I hope that can continue.
Michael, how significant is Charlie Kirk's assassination? I met Charlie. Charlie came to the Freedom Center at some of our Restoration Weekend events. David kind of mentored him and introduced him into the conservative movement. I got to meet Charlie when he was still a teenager. So I got to know Charlie pretty well, and I've got a lot of friends at Turning Point. It's an incredible organization. But even I, who had known Charlie for over a decade, I underestimated the impact that he's made, not just in America, but worldwide. I've had, there's people here in Japan that have said, we're really sorry what has happened to Charlie Kirk. We see this all over the world. So Charlie's impact was just, it's mind-boggling. I think maybe all of us, I don't know about all of us, I certainly, and a lot of us underestimated, as powerful as Charlie's message was, and as much impact as he had, I think a lot of us underestimated just how powerful Charlie's message was. So now it's going to be, we've lost a great general in the war, right? I mean, if we were in World War II and General Patton goes down, who's going to continue the march to Germany, right? So replacing Charlie's can be very difficult. I think, we know what to do, but Charlie was so charismatic, brilliant, so hardworking and driven. I don't know if one person's going to be able to come up and be the new Charlie Kirk. It's going to take all of us to replace Charlie Kirk. Well, there's a scripture that supports that. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it abides alone. But if it does die, it brings forth much fruit. That's the scripture that's been quoted a lot about his assassination. But one other quick question before I take a break. Why are we tolerating killing people because we disagree with them?
Well, look, the left comes out and calls us all, Donald Trump is a fascist, right? And anyone, the MAGA, these attacks on the MAGA movement And MAGA, I guess I'm a MAGA. I mean, Make America Great Again. I've been a supporter of Donald Trump since before 2016. Well, I mean, Joe Biden in that one address, I think in Philadelphia, basically called out the MAGAs as domestic, almost as domestic terrorists. Called us all, called us all fascist. Well, if it's 1936 and you have the chance to assassinate Adolf Hitler, would you do it, right? Maybe now we'd say, yeah, you better do it. Well, if you're going to call us Nazis and fascist, and I understand political rhetoric, but this is beyond that. That if we're all fascists, then what do you do with the fascists but eliminate them? The left wants to replace the MAGA movement. They want to replace what's good and great about this country. And if you're going to save souls, if you're going to create this great utopia, then nothing is going to stand in your way. We saw this in the Soviet Union. We saw this in Cambodia and Red China. You eliminate any obstacle that's going to stop you from creating this beautiful, perfect communist heaven on earth. When that rhetoric gets ramped up and we are the enemy, And now look, I mean, we use political rhetoric and we can talk about the left wing and the Democrats being evil and they are the enemy within. We can use that kind of rhetoric, but you don't see conservatives going out with guns trying to shoot the opposition. We took Charlie Kirk's example. You go on the campuses, you go into the open market, and you discuss and debate the ideas. That's what Americans do. Unfortunately, and not every Democrat or everyone on the left does this, but unfortunately, enough of them have where they pick up a gun and they go to a baseball field to try to shoot Republican congressmen. They tried to assassinate Donald Trump. They did assassinate Charlie Kirk. They take that rhetoric very seriously. We probably need to, I think the left needs to tone down this argument that we are all fascists and Nazis. I think that's very dangerous. So I'm not, I wish I could say I was surprised, but, the left and their motives are to create this utopia and they will eliminate whatever stands in their way. And let's face it, the MAGA movement, Donald Trump, the conservative movement, many of the Republicans in this country stand in the way of their perfect utopia. So the rhetoric is incredibly dangerous.
Isn't it interesting? They get an A in this, but they end up blaming us for what they're doing.
They what? I'm sorry?
They blame us for what they're doing.
Well, yeah, and they'll, we're the Nazis and the fascists. We're the domestic terrorists. When they went after to try to, the FBI said they were going to look into Catholic pro-lifers as possible domestic terrorists. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, this is what the left does, right? I mean, they talk about everything that they accuse Donald Trump of doing, weaponizing the government. They've already done, and they've done in spades. So weaponizing the government to attack conservatives, they weaponize the IRS under Barack Obama to attack conservative Tea Party groups and other conservative nonprofits. That's what they do. One of the warnings about when George Bush, George Bush the son, when he pushed the Patriot Act, a lot of people said, you're giving the government a lot of power. George Bush might not abuse that power, but when the Democrats get in power, they will abuse that power. The Democrats have abused, and again, they accuse Donald Trump of being a dictator and authoritarian. They accuse him of all the things that they are guilty of. So, I mean, this again, we are in very dangerous ground. Thank goodness that we have the people that we have in power in Washington now, but they will be in power again. I mean, we're not going to have Republican or America First administrations for the next 40 years. So we have to be on our guard, and that's how dangerous this situation is.
All right, let me take a quick break. Check out Michael's book. It's called A Time to Stand and The Dire Hour to Defend American Beauty. And there's a picture of the cover of the book. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, and such an honor to have back with us today Michael Finch. He's the president of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. We're actually bringing him in live from Japan today. So welcome, brother. He's got a new book out called A Time to Stand, The Dire Hour to Defend American Beauty, and there's a picture of the cover of the book. I assume that's available online at the stores and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, Amazon.com, Barnes & Nobles. Also, you can go to frontpagemag.com. That's the center's flagship website. It's available in the bookstore at Front Page, but Amazon, all the regular websites. So thank you again, Perry.
Yeah, you bet. So, Michael, when you talk about the beauty of America, how do you explain the faith of America?
Well, they're intertwined, all right? I mean, there is no American beauty, there is no American culture without our faith. We were grounded in Judeo-Christian principles. The founders were almost to the man all Christian, and those are the beliefs. And whether or not all Americans are Christians or not Christians, the founders believed, even though we were, not necessarily we were. I wouldn't define us strictly as a Christian nation, but we were founded by Christians and Christian beliefs, Judeo-Christian beliefs. So the founders believed very strongly that America would have to stay virtuous. I mean, the republic is very tenuous, and the form of government is very tenuous, very, very easy to be corruptible by power. But the people had to be virtuous. So faith is really critical. And when I talk about American culture and the art and the history and the architecture, it was all driven by this kind of, I mean, beauty does not exist except for trying to really reach the heavens and emulate God. I think the greatest art, I mean, Bach is not American, of course. He's the greatest composer the world has ever seen. At least I think that was fair to say. He said that every note of music that he wrote was in service to God, right? So the cathedrals that were built in Europe were built to rise to the heavens. Great art and beauty, true beauty, is really an expression of us trying to, in our own humble ways, we fail, but we try to reach the heavens and we try to please God. And that all builds into our faith. So the faith is critical. Americans, if we lose our faith, I think we lose our culture. And I think we have lost. I mean, we need to restore our culture. The greatness of American culture really was from about the mid-19th century until about 1930, the 1920s. That was really the golden age of American culture. We were united. There was a purpose. It was aspirational. American culture, it didn't just start to decline in the 1960s. It started to decline before that. And even though Americans are still a very church-going nation, we still have tremendous amount of faith. I think that there has been a drop in that in the last half century, and there's been a lot of attacks on faith, taking prayer out of schools, for instance, in the early 1960s, and you know this topic much better than I do. But we've had a movement in this country to remove faith. Thank goodness for the American people, again, who still have a tremendous amount of faith, and they can restore the country, and they'll remember the greatness of American culture and our history. If we take away that faith, we lose everything.
Michael, you spent years defending the Western civilization, and you're certainly encapsulating all of this in your new book entitled A Time to Stand, and that certainly is the time to stand. If we don't stand, what could we lose here?
Well, we'll lose everything, and I believe this. I do believe, and Barack Obama might not have, but American exceptionalism is very real. So if America fails, then I don't know what's left. There will not. I don't think there's another America out there. When the British Empire collapsed, England is still, an important country, but America was there to pick up the torch, and America really became. And I don't mean military power. I'm not. We have slipped a little bit into becoming an empire, which I regret. But America is still the shining city on the hill. We still are the example for the world. I believe that. I think we have to believe that. If America fails, then I think the cause of freedom and liberty will take. That's almost like a death blow. It will survive in small pockets around the world, but America is really the last great hope. So it's critical, and that's not to say that America is going to last for 2,000 years. None of us are going to last that long. This great experiment will not last till the end of history, but it needs to last for some time. Our end cannot be that near, because that will be the end of liberty.
What do you want people to take away from your book?
I hope people will read, there's many different essays in the book. If you read one chapter and you read, you're in Oregon, I believe, right?
Right.
I was on with my family years ago. We went to the end of the Oregon Trail, and there was a museum at the end, and they had books with paintings from Albert Bierstadt, for instance. Beautiful landscape painter, one of the best landscape painters in history, rivaled certainly the great English landscape painters. And he painted aspirational paintings of American landscape. If you read this book, and Albert Bierstadt who's not taught in the schools. Most Americans have no idea who Albert Bierstadt or Thomas Cole are, the great landscape painters. But if you read a chapter in the book, and that name catches you, and then you go off and explore, who is Albert Bierstadt? What did he do, and what did he mean for American culture? Another name I'll throw out there, Willa Cather, the writer from Nebraska in the early 1900s. I was never instructed to read Willa Cather in school. I didn't even know who Willa Cather was. I knew the name, and a few years ago, I read a book by Joseph Epstein where he said she might be the greatest American novelist ever. Not John Steinbeck, not Ernest Hemingway, good writers, but Willa Cather may be the best American novelist ever. And I am 60 years old. I'm over 60 now. I had never read her. So I took that, I read that book, and I started, and within 8 months, I read all of Willa Cather's novels. She's an extraordinary, aspiring American novelist, an incredible American novelist, and a key part of that American beauty, American culture. If you read the book and you catch Willa Cather catches your eye, and you go to Amazon or you go to your local Barnes and Nobles and buy a Willa Cather novel and read it, then I feel like my book has actually had some purpose. Go to San Francisco has become a cesspool. But if you go look at the City Hall in San Francisco, which was designed by Arthur Brown, the architect in the early 20th century, it is one of the most beautiful buildings in the world, certainly one of the most beautiful buildings in America. He also designed, for all my friends in Southern California, the City Hall in Pasadena, strangely enough. But it is an incredibly beautiful building built along classical Greek and Roman lines with some improvement. If you go to the City Hall or you go to Washington, D.C. and look at the old buildings, not the new ones, the old buildings in the Federal Triangle, or the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, the Capitol, you will see the greatness, the American Renaissance period of American culture. And if you go look at those buildings, because they're written about in this book, then that will be a success. So I hope to re-engage the American citizen to American culture and just realize, because the schools aren't doing it, but just realize how beautiful and how much we should cherish this great American culture and our history.
All right, the book is entitled "A Time to Stand, the Dire Hour to Defend American Beauty." There's a picture of the cover of the book on the screen. You certainly can get it online. Check it out at Front Page Magazine, other places as well. Michael, thank you for staying up past midnight in Japan to talk to us today. When are you coming back?
I'll be back in a couple of weeks. So
okay.
I'll be back in Southern California at our Valencia office. So,
okay.
But Perry, thank you so much for having me on. I'm very grateful. God bless, and thank you again for having me.
Yeah, same to you. All right, blessings to you. We'll get you back when you're caught up on your sleep.
Okay. Take care. Thank you.
All right, see you later.
All right, bye.